Kim, thank you for being with us today. I know you teach various types of embroidery in classes wherever you're living, and you've lived in lots of different places. Do you like doing the silk embroidery the best? Is it the fastest? Is it the easiest? How would you classify it?
Oh, I think it's just absolutely beautiful, and it is one of my favorites
Is
to
it?
teach, especially for beginners, because you can be very successful very quickly with it.
Oh, instant gratification. I
Absolutely.
like
And
that.
if you're teaching, say, an 8 or 10-year-old child, you want
Oh,
them to have that immediate success. And even as adults, we really enjoy doing things that we can be successful at very quickly.
so if a child is doing this, do you recommend the wider silk ribbon, or does it
Um,
matter?
Usually it's easier to get certain widths than other widths.
Oh,
So I usually start with the most common widths, which are the 4 millimeter and the 7 millimeter. And since most of us think in inches, not millimeters, I brought some samples so you could see.
oh, okay, good.
This is just a full strand of regular embroidery floss, and we oftentimes use embroidery floss along with silk ribbon because some for narrow, skinny things like stems or details on flowers, floss is good.
Oh,
This is the narrowest ribbon. It's a little harder to find. It's a 2 millimeter. And then you get to 4 and 7 millimeter. And these are the widths that you're going to find most easily.
most.
And it has been made as wide as the 13 millimeter, which is about the width of seam tape.
That's what I thought of was seam binding when I
Yes,
saw that.
it's a little bit different though because it's 100% silk.
And silk ribbon obviously has to have silk
Right,
ribbon
it needs,
uses, not polyester.
no, because when you pull it through the fabric, it's got to compact to go through the fabric without creating a hole.
Oh.
And unfortunately, the polyester spools that we buy at craft stores and fabric stores won't work. They just make holes in your fabric, and you can't make the pretty stitches.
Okay.
But one of my favorite ribbons is what we call an overdye. And if you look at the piece of ribbon as it's comes off the spool or the
Do they
hang,
come off? Is that how you buy them? Off of a spool or off a card?
it really depends on the brand.
Oh, it does. Okay.
A lot of the overdyes are very small operations,
Oh, how
and
pretty.
you need to iron them
Oh,
so they're flat and smooth. But you can see you get all these wonderful colors at one time in a single thread, which is
Which
really
is
very
like
nice.
what we call ombre, isn't it? Where
Yes.
variegated, so to speak.
If you were trying to find it online, which is usually where I order my ribbon, overdye is what we
Overdye.
use. And you use a lot of familiar embroidery stitches like French knots, lazy daisy stitch that we sometimes call detached chain. But what I wanted to show you is how easy it is to make a beautiful rose in silk ribbon embroidery. You just would draw a circle on your fabric, and then you're going to want 5 spokes like a wheel. And when you want to divide something equally into 5 divisions, the easiest thing is to make a capital letter Y with your first 3 stitches, and then come in and add 2 more stitches to divide up these wider areas, and
That's
you'll get a
clever.
division of 5. Then you just bring your thread up, and we usually use a really big needle for silk ribbon embroidery, like a chenille, because it is fairly fragile and it will show wear.
And you did tie a knot, just like
Yes,
in sewing.
yes. Knot's not a bad word in silk ribbon embroidery. I know some kind of times, like cross stitch, we don't want to do it. And then you just start weaving under and over the spokes.
So it's not going, except for the beginning, it's not going through the
No,
fabric
if you look
itself.
on the back, the only place you
It's
see is
clean.
the knot and where I tied off. So you just completely go around weaving it till you fill in the space, and you don't have to fiddle with your thread. In fact, if you just kind of let it form folds, it's going to look like a more realistic rose. And then, of course, a rose needs to have leaves. And one of the stitches that is particularly unique to silk ribbon embroidery is called, brilliantly named, a leaf stitch.
Oh, okay.
So with the knot in
You
there,
tied a knot.
yes, we use a special kind of flat knot. You just come up, lay your silk ribbon on your fabric, pierce it, and then you want to pull through slowly. And if you go slow enough, you get a pretty little curl and point
I see.
at the end. And so that makes it very quick to do a beautiful rose. And you can use that on garments, or you can use it in bigger embroideries.
Well, and for instance, you did a whole class on just little projects for leftover
Right.
fabric.
Well, these
and
are
this is the same rose that you just showed us.
absolutely. We oftentimes in embroidery call these smalls, and they're needlework accessories. They make really, really nice gifts for people. This is what we call an ort container. Ort is one of those words you see in
I'd
crossword.
never heard of it.
Yeah, crossword puzzles. It's leftover threads, and I like to stitch with friends, but my friends would rather me not leave a trail of leftover thread. So this is a little container to put your leftovers in. And then we have
Pin
a
cushion.
pin cushion. And of course, our scissors are very precious to us.
And they're expensive. You don't want to lose them.
Right, so we have a little holder for those. And then this is just a little needle book that you can keep your needles in as you work
to
along.
go through the felt, I see.
Yes.
And this is just a little tin can.
Yes, it's just a little candy box. And I did a little landscape, if you will. These are French knots for my blue delphinium, and silk ribbon's kind of suggestive. If I do it in blue, it's a delphinium. If I do it in pink, it's a stock. And here's the rose that I just demoed for you, and a little rosebud. And here are those leaf stitches, so we have a little rose bush. And then the iris over here is just a lazy daisy stitch or a detached chain with 3 of the little leaf stitches. So if you do them in purple, they're part of a flower. If you do them in green, they're a leaf. And if you do them long, you have that long sword-shaped leaf that you use for an iris.
So you sort of just need to learn the stitch.
Right.
And then you can determine where you want to and what color silk ribbon to use.
Absolutely. And the overdyes are so nice for a rose because you don't have to keep changing threads. You just go round and round and round with that same thread.
This is a beautiful piece, by the way, and it shows the same thing that we've just shown in smalls.
Right.
But this is
Silk Ribbon Pond, and my concept was if you had a beautiful flower garden around a garden pond, which would be the center area. So we have a couple of rose bushes and some hostas and the hyacinths and a water lily. And then the really narrow ribbon. This is one of the few places I used. I wanted willow branches dropping down because they like water. And again, we have the iris.
and you've added your little bling.
Yes,
Gives it
I
just
do
a special
love
touch.
bling. Those are the little crystal treasure butterflies.
And if you are wanting another type of project to do, this is silk embroidery.
The top is
on the top.
smocking, and then on the
smocking, excuse me.
right, and then the spine had the silk ribbon, and I wanted a pretty guest book. So it would be really nice if you had someone in your family getting married and you wanted something special to have that for them.
This is just great, and it's amazing how I like the silk ribbon because, as you said earlier, it goes a long way. You can do a lot of things with it. You don't have to change needles. That was
And
my.
it works up so fast.
Well, it seems like it would. Well, thank you so much for showing us just
pleasure.
some ideas for different types of embroidery.
Well, thank you.